welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something huge, the business strategy behind ATSC 3.0. Now, it's easy to get lost in the tech specs, but what we're really talking about here isn't just a simple upgrade. It's a complete reinvention of what broadcasting is. We're going to dig into why this technology is such a big deal, how it's a direct answer to the massive pressures facing the industry, and what it could mean for the future of your TV screen.
Now, just so you know where we're coming from, this is part 7 of our 10-part tutorial on ATSC 1.0 versus 3.0. Everything we're covering is based on a really comprehensive report from Virtualization Options LLC. Specifically, we're digging into Chapter 7. And what's great about this is that it cuts right through all the technical jargon to focus on what really matters, the critical business decisions that are going to spell the difference between success and failure. So let's jump in. Okay, so first things first, before we can even talk about a game plan, we've got to understand the battlefield. The whole media arena has been turned upside down. And you know what? The old rules just don't apply anymore.
And yeah, that really is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? The core challenge here isn't just about plugging in new hardware. It's about fighting to stay relevant in a world where your viewers have a million choices right at their fingertips. And look, these things on the list, they're not happening in isolation. It's more like a chain reaction, right? Streaming services explode in popularity, which of course leads to more and more people cutting the cord. Then viewers get used to watching on their phones, which makes on-demand viewing feel totally normal, way more normal than appointment TV. And for younger audiences, this isn't some big shift, it's just the world they grew up in. So yeah, this is the perfect storm that ATSC 3.0 is built to weather. So when you're facing threats that big, it's pretty clear that switching to ATSC 3.0 has to be way more than just an engineering project. It's a major strategic business move. The question is, how do you do it right? Let's walk through the playbook. Okay, don't just see this as a simple to-do list. This is a strategic roadmap, and the logic here is absolutely crucial. Notice how everything starts with the business case. You have to prove this makes financial sense before you order a single piece of equipment. The tech plan serves the business, not the other way around. And maybe most importantly, this whole process doesn't just end at launch. It's a continuous loop. You roll out features, you get feedback, and you keep optimizing. All right, any smart game plan has to include a section on what could go wrong. And look, talking about risks isn't about being pessimistic. It's about being realistic. It's one of the most important parts of planning for success. So let's break down the big hazards you're likely to face. And where else would we start? Well, with the bottom line. Let's talk about financial risks. Because honestly, ignoring the money side of things is probably the fastest way to make sure a project this big never even gets off the ground. So the key here is to build a financial fortress around your plan. How do you do that? Well, first, you assume there will be cost overruns, and you bake a 15 to 25% contingency right into the budget from the start. Next, to handle the risk of revenue not showing up as fast as you'd like, you roll out new features and phases. That way, early wins can help fund later stages. And finally, you have to stress test your own business case. Use sensitivity analysis to figure out its weaknesses before the market does. But hey, it's not all about the money. Once the capital is secured and the gear starts arriving, that's when you face the operational risks. This transition is going to shake up your team's daily workflow. This is where the rubber hits the road, and preparing your people for that is just absolutely critical. What's really interesting here is that these mitigation strategies, they're not really technical fixes, are they? They're all about managing change. You're not just installing new equipment, you're fundamentally changing your team's workflow. That means you have to invest in training early. You have to make the transition gradual, not some big jarring cutover. And you have to create rock-solid documentation, especially to handle the complexity of that simulcast period. All right, so we've covered the competitive landscape, we have a deployment playbook, and we know how to manage the risks. But when you boil it all down, what are the core things that really make or break a successful ATSC 3.0 transition? What does it actually take to win? It all comes down to these 4 things, these 4 pillars, and they have to be perfectly aligned. First up, you need that executive commitment. Leadership has to bring the cash, sure, but also the vision and the patience for a long-term project. Second, technical capabilities. You've got to have the engineering brainpower and reliable equipment to make the tech actually work. Third, business model execution. You need a killer sales team that can take all these cool new features and turn them into real dollars. And finally, consumer adoption. I mean, if your audience doesn't have the devices or doesn't understand why they should care, the whole thing just stalls out. You can't skimp on any one of these. A weakness in one pillar can bring the whole thing down. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of the matter. There's no magic formula here. There is no single perfect way to do ATSC 3.0. The right path for your station depends entirely on your specific situation, your market, your budget, your engineering talent, your ultimate goals. What's a brilliant move for a big network in a major city could be a complete disaster for an independent station somewhere else.
So, when it's all said and done, this transition is going to demand a whole lot of patience, a ton of careful planning, and the flexibility to adapt on the fly. And it leaves every single broadcast professional out there with that one essential question they have to figure out for themselves.